Welcome to the Seahawkers podcast with your hosts, Adam Emmert.
I'd love to draft a tackle and not worry about where I'm going to move him to because he's going to succeed a freaking tackle.
And Brandan Schultz.
Is Steve Keim the Brian Williams of general managers? I say yes. And for that, do better.
Go Hawks!
On a quest to own the West, yippee-ki-yay, we make the ground shake. On game day, 12 man, yeah, he's feeling it is vital.
Welcome to the Seahawkers podcast. I'm Brandan Schultz, member of the military Seahawkers, and joining me, my good buddy and Montana Seahawker, Adam Emmert.
Hey, man, it's good to be here today. You know, I just been sitting here today just thinking about the fact that I haven't heard this many people from Atlanta cry since General William Tecumseh Sherman marched down to Atlanta. That's the last Sherman to make Atlantans cry as much as I've heard this week.
Have you had your fill of drinking Atlanta Falcons fans' salty tears this week?
Oh, my Lord. Just cry. This is a bunch of cry baby poop butts, man. just crying. Holy cow.
Yeah.
But it was an awesome win for us, so suck it, Atlanta fans.
And we're going to get into that, too. But just how we feel about this win and how we felt about the ending and maybe why we don't feel maybe a little bit more sympathetic. Because clearly, Adam, I'm not hearing any sympathy from your end.
No, I've got zero sympathy for you. Stop it. Stop it.
Well, getting into this week, we are going to talk about that final play of the game where Richard Sherman and Earl Thomas were right on Julio Jones on the 4th and 10 play. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about the Seahawks' dominant defensive line play and really a dominant defensive play for 3 out of the 4 quarters. Of course, we'll get into a preview of the matchup with the Arizona Cardinals coming up Sunday Night Football this coming week. And we got some new members of the flock, and we'll get into do better and better at life.
You bet, man. Well, let's start out with this fantastic game. What a fun game, except for about one quarter. But, the best part about it is, Brandan, is we're talking about a third quarter meltdown instead of a fourth quarter meltdown.
Right. Yeah,
I like that a lot better.
If I had to pick one of the quarters to melt down, and it would be the third quarter, especially if we're talking about a win, because and the third quarter meltdown was kind of surprising, right? Because this Seahawks team coming into this game hadn't given up any points in the third quarter. And so to see three touchdowns against this defense, it was, and of course, that's what Falcons fans are going to point to and say, well, the third quarter, that's the Atlanta Falcons team that we expected. And Adam, I know you're pointing to those other 3 quarters and saying, this is what I expected going into this game. I expected a dominant performance from the Seahawks defense and shutting down Matt Ryan.
Well, I'm no math major, Brandan, but I know that 3 quarters is more than 1 quarter. Like that's more quarters played well than the other team. I know that by a large factor. Like by
at least 3 times.
Yeah, at least 3 times. So there you go. I mean, look, that first half. Let's talk about the first half to start off, because I thought that was exactly the brand of football that I thought we would see coming into this game. High flying offense meets the rough and tumble defense. And Matt Ryan just got the snot knocked out of him for about an entire half. It was pretty impressive. I mean, they held him to 80-odd some yards of offense in the first half. Yeah,
86 yards in the first half, so kept him under 100 yards. And then, even better, 0 for 6 on third down.
Right. They really didn't do diddly-poo on third down the entire game. I mean, they really, even their, just like I said on the pod the previous week, when they score, it's on big plays. And we generally don't give up big plays. If you keep them to a dink and dunk game, they won't get there. They will implode.
Yeah, and we saw, you gave me a hard time last week about Kevin Pierre-Louis. He was in there for 60% of the snaps, Adam, and I think he was a big reason
Did you hear
why.
His name called?
Well, we did hear his name called on a penalty, but we didn't hear his. He got the block in the back.
Like, just because they could have put me out there, and you could have been like, "See, Adam was in the game," and I would have done crap.
No,
that would have been awful.
They didn't throw to the backs because they were covered by KPL. But while we're on the topic of that, KPL, he actually got called for a block in the back while he was blocking somebody in the back with his back. I thought that was impressive.
Right, that's a back-to-back block in the back.
Yeah. You usually don't see that, and I wanted to give him kudos because that's impressive
for being very creative when he commits a penalty.
Right.
Like, this isn't figure skating, Brandon. You don't get extra style points, for your routine.
I like the creativity of the penalty.
Jeez Louise. Man,
and he did a really good job of selling how he wasn't blocking the guy in the back by having his hands up in the air too. That helped a lot.
What? Yeah. Just like every time you did something wrong as a kid and like your mom would start to scold you, just put your hands in the air like, what?
Yeah.
Like, no, it never helped. You still got a spanking.
That's your tell.
Yeah. Jeez Louise. Yeah, man, he was in the game. I will say that, and he definitely
did fine. Stop it. But the Seahawks defense, a great job, and they continued kind of that first half dominance going into this game, and even now they've only allowed 1 touchdown over 5 games. That's 0.2 touchdowns per game. That's pretty good.
In the first half.
In the first half of the first 5 games of the season, they've only allowed 1 touchdown over those 5 games in the first half.
That is super impressive. A big reason for that this week was the play of Cliff Averill. I mean, he was a monster, especially in the first half. He just wrecked Atlanta. I mean, they had no answer for him, which I thought was pretty impressive overall from his part. And this is even without Frank Clark in there as well, which I thought I wasn't sure what kind of pass rush we'd get without Frank Clark in there, just that other cog, that other guy to kind of help. And yet they still brought the heat.
Cliff Averill building houses and getting the first turnover of the game for the Seahawks.
Ryan out of the shotgun. 3 receivers to the left side, including Julio Jones. Here comes a 4-man rush. Ryan has time. He's hit. Ball comes out. Seahawks fall on it. Was his arm going forward? Caretti says Seahawks football. Tony McDaniel falls on it. Matt Ryan was cocking his arm to throw. I don't think it was going forward. The Seahawks got to him and knocked that ball free.
And that helped set up a score, which was, kind of needed to kind of get the offense get going here. And they ended up putting 17 points on the board overall in the first half, and that was great. I mean, at that point, 17-3, I felt like this was going to be the 3-score victory that I had predicted.
Right, yeah, and like we said, having a team that had been so strong in the third quarter and a team that hasn't given up a fourth quarter lead this year, you kind of expected just the Seahawks to coast to victory. But that's not what happened. Dan Quinn, coach of the Falcons, former defensive coordinator, Dan Quinn, he flipped the script on the Seahawks, Adam. How often do we see the Seahawks get down early and just surge back in the second half to get the win? But unfortunately for Dan Quinn, he was using an old script because it was the one that gives them a heartbreaking loss in the final seconds. And the Falcons, they also gave up a bunch of yards to a tight end. So, see, flipping the script doesn't always work, Coach Quinn.
That's exactly right. And that's exactly what I was going to bring up was Jimmy Graham when you talk about flipping the script. I mean, Jimmy was a monster out there. He was probably our best offensive player of the game. This is, the third game in a row? He had 6 receptions, 89 yards. I mean, he didn't quite get to 100 yards this game, but, previous 2 busting 100 yards. He's the number 1 weapon right now. It's absolutely clear that, because you look, Doug Baldwin still only had 4 catches. Nobody else had more than 4 catches.
Right.
And Jimmy had 6. He's the guy Russell Wilson's looking to, especially with this quick passing attack, with him being still hobbled, because I don't think Russell Wilson still looked like Russell Wilson yet.
No, I don't think so either. He did fine, though. It wasn't, I thought he moved around the pocket well. You watch the way Aaron Rodgers kind of moves around in the pocket. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of that similar way, right? You're not going to run, but you're moving around enough to see things, you see the field, and you can take off if you need to. But not with that same burst of speed that we're used to Russell Wilson having.
Right. Yeah, that's definitely the difference there. But let's talk about the one thing that did concern me about this game. The one thing that I came out of this game and it really bothered me. The fact that we couldn't run the ball. This was a team that we were supposed to be able to just shove the ball down their throat.
Yeah.
I mean, they were middle of the pack in the league when it comes to defending the run, and we couldn't get anything going. I mean, Christian Michael had a couple nice runs. I think he had one 20-odd yard run.
Yeah, 21-yarder. Yeah.
But, 18 attempts, 64 yards. I mean, still he had 2 touchdowns, and that's great. But, overall, that running game was not what we've come to expect. And look, if we were supposed to start to get it going, it should have been in this last game. Yeah,
and I think not being able to run the ball in the third quarter, that is what really hurt this team, because when you have that lead coming out of the half And sure, you give up a touchdown to Julio Jones to make it 17-10, but you still need to be able to run the football and keep your defense at least off the field a little bit. The Seahawks' inability to move the ball on offense in the third quarter was a big reason why the Falcons had the opportunity to score 21 points.
Well, Seahawks only had 2 possessions, I believe, in the third quarter. I mean...
Yeah, and they didn't move it at all.
That's not true. Their second possession, they moved it all the way across the 50. We were in Seahawks territory on a 3rd and short. Give it to Christian Michael to go to the left, and he comes up short. Instead of just going for it and really just diving for that first down, he Mickey Moused around a little bit, and that's the big difference between Thomas Rawls and Christian Michael. Christian Michael definitely is faster, but Thomas Rawls has more power. He runs a little more like beast mode. He gets that third down. And then what does Pete Carroll do at that point? His balls suck up within his chest cavity, and he freaking punts it. And look, the reason why we gave up another touchdown in that quarter is because the football gods punished him for freaking punting it on the opponent's side of the field on a 4th and inches when you needed to stem the tide and get the momentum flipped.
Yeah, that was a difficult call to make. And you could hear it from him after the game, too, in the interviews. He didn't want to talk about that 4th down play.
Somebody talked him out of it.
I think he really wanted to go for it.
Yeah,
because it's not like Pete to not go for it on a 4th and inch call when it's at midfield. And at first I thought it was great because the dude from the Falcons fair caught the football at the 2-yard line. and I'm going, this is great.
John Ryan's face after that was hysterical. Like he was like, oh, all right, it's Christmas in Seattle. This is fantastic. Thanks, brah. Like, yeah, he was excited about that. That was hilarious.
But then the Falcons go and they drive 98 yards and get another touchdown. Yeah, like you said, football god's not on Coach Carroll's side.
So let's talk a little bit about the defense in that third quarter. I went back and I rewatched just specifically the third quarter to kind of see what the difference was. The biggest difference was that we played a little more zone. And the other big difference is Kyle Shanahan, as much as I think he's a craptastic offensive coordinator, give him some credit. For the first time, I saw him come up with something creative in the second half. And not that it was mind-blowingly creative. He started moving Julio Jones around the formation to the degree inside into the slot, run him in motion, or run other guys in his zone to try to get him free. Mm-hmm. And basically, that's where the confusion started. And that's when Julio started to get his big chunk plays down the field. And the Seahawks fixed that in the fourth quarter when they said, screw this zone crap. We're going to play man, and he ain't getting anything more, and then shut him down for 3 drives in the fourth quarter. So the second we recognized, look, okay, this zone crap isn't going to work, especially with Kelsey McRae and Richard Sherman apparently speaking Chinese to one another, and they can't figure out who's supposed to be guarding who. They switch to man, and they get things buttoned up in the fourth quarter. But to me, that was it, was the movement of Julio Jones around the formation. That was the big thing that sprung that offense loose in the third quarter. Because at first I thought it was a pass rush wasn't getting there, but they were still in his face.
Yeah.
So to me, that was the biggest difference.
I thought Matt Ryan was getting rid of the ball a little bit quicker in the second half as compared to the first half. It just felt like he was holding on to it, waiting for, and that's what happened on that sack, the strip sack where we recovered the fumble, was he was just waiting for Julio to get open and waited just a little bit too long, and that's when Cliff Averill got there. But it was important what the Falcons did there because, and you could hear it on some of the mic'd up sessions that they showed on TV, was you heard some of the Falcons talking to one another when they started moving Julio around. The guys on offense were talking to the quarterback saying, yeah, when I ran this route, Earl didn't cover me, and so it could open up there, and they took advantage of it.
They did, and it sounded like another factor within that was they have practiced something new as far as some of their zone coverage techniques over the last couple weeks and decided to implement it in the second half. Why you change when things are working awesome, I'll never freaking know.
Yeah.
But apparently they tried to change some things around a little bit, and that's where the miscommunications came from.
And change things when Cam Chancellor, your captain on defense, and apparently one of the better communicators on defense, is not in the game, and you have his backup Kelsey McRae. Let's do new things now.
Right. And so, look, in my own defense about predicting a 3-score win, when I predicted that Cam Chancellor was healthy and was supposed to be playing, I didn't realize that the bye week was going to beat Cam Chancellor somehow, and he wasn't going to play this week. That was a huge, huge blow. And I think I even texted you that before the game.
Yeah, well, and even on the Facebook page, we were talking about how many scores difference that would make in this game having Cam Chancellor out. And it turned out to at least 2 that I think you could attribute. Maybe the Mohamed Sanu catch by the Falcons. That one you can't point to Cam Chancellor not being in there. But at least those 2 plays where you had Julio, one running free, and then the tight end running free. It makes me so, I was so mad after that Julio touchdown. And I could feel Richard Sherman's pain on that one, because how do you allow one of the top 3, if not the best receiver in Julio Jones in the NFL to just completely run free, unimpeded toward the end zone and not cover him?
I don't know, because both of you said you had him, yet neither of you had him.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I guess that's the only way that happens.
Well, and there was one thing that the Seahawks didn't have Richard Sherman cover Julio Jones exclusively, right? It was like 30 out of about 45 plays. So like 60, 70% of the time, Sherman was on Julio Jones. And I don't know why you don't just say match him up. It seemed like with Brandon Marshall, Sherman was there on Marshall a lot more and maybe they didn't move Marshall around quite as much as they did Julio, but it just seemed to me, and Sherman shut down Julio Jones, right? He had, I think, only 3 catches and under 50 yards when Sherman was on him, but right. When Sherman wasn't on him, that's when he put up his big numbers. And oftentimes that's because they were trying to play, a lot of that was Jones running crossing routes. So basically, the Seahawks defense is predicated on playing press man on the corners, and then on the interior and on the short stuff, you play a lot of zone. That's that whole 3-deep zone situation, right? That you hear so much about. And basically, once they got him inside in the slot or moved him in motion and things like that, there wasn't one particular guy working on Julio. He was running through zones, and that's where they had their big success. I'll put it straight up on record. I freaking hate zone. I hate zone so much. The only defense I hate more than zone is prevent. You get torn up. The only time zone coverage makes sense is when you're playing Tyrod Taylor, Colin Kaepernick. You want to play zone when you have a mobile quarterback so that all your guys are looking in towards the quarterback. So if he does break the pocket, guys can break on him and bring him down early. That's the only time zone makes any freaking sense to me. Otherwise, just man up. Man up. Either he's a better athlete or you are. Man up, you have a better opportunity to be in position to defend a pass. I like man coverage. I play if I were a coach, I play man all the time forever. You couldn't hardly get me out of man. Well, before we get too far past it, let's talk about that Julio Jones touchdown, because there was an emotional moment that we saw from Richard Sherman after that big play. He goes over to the sidelines, kind of looks like he's blowing up. And then here's an email from Dave Bloomquist reacting to what happened after that. He says, in all my years as a fan, I've never seen anything like when the team rallied around Sherm when he lost his cool. That level of dedication to the team and unity is so rare. I was floored by it, and it reminded me how lucky we all are as fans during this era. I'm very optimistic that we're on our way to another historic season. Go Hawks, from Dave.
Hey, Dave, I kind of agree. I've never seen a team rally around a dude like that and just like try to pull him back in, because he was clearly, part of it was communication. Part of it, Richard was so hot during the third quarter that he wasn't thinking straight on some of that too. So they needed to go ahead and pull him back in. I've never seen the team jump up and down and chant, "Y'all, you got, we're all we got, we all we need."
Now, that's something that you normally see before the game, kind of the rallying together and getting fired up for the game. But to see that on the sideline while it was happening, and and Sherman trying to walk away, and the guys pulling him back in, saying, you're not going, you're going to be part of this, whether you're jumping with us or you're just around us while we're doing it.
I'm not sure that exactly brought him back in. I think he just eventually calmed down.
Yeah.
I mean, when I'm pissed off, if people get in my face like that, that's not going to help.
No, I don't think so either. But it was cool to see that the team was behind him, though, right?
Right, exactly. Why wouldn't you be? I mean, he's the best corner in the game. Of course you're going to be behind him. He's one of the leaders on your team. But the one thing about this whole story that just drives me just nuts. Oh my God, Richard Sherman melted down on the sidelines. And what does this mean for this team? Is this a problem with Pete Carroll's philosophy? Is the team going to be able to weather the storm? Stop it. Just shut up. You're being an idiot. Look, here's the thing. How many times have we seen Tom Brady just melt down on the sidelines on his players to get them fired up and back into a game? Dozens. And yet, none of us go, oh my gosh, Tom Brady melted down on the sidelines. Is this a problem with Bill Belichick's philosophy? Is the team going to be able to survive it? No, we say it's great leadership.
Yeah.
And yet, when Sherman does it, it's a problem.
Well, it was a problem, too. You saw it with Odell Beckham Jr. earlier this season, right? Him getting fired up over on the sideline, like when he kicked the net, and the net got back at him. And we've seen him turn that into kind of a running gag now. But
well, Odell takes it even a step further. Like he gets to a point where he's in tears on the sideline. You know what I mean? Like where his head is nowhere near the football game.
Well, but my point is you see it with Odell. You've seen it with Des Bryant, guys showing emotion on the sideline, and somehow showing emotion on the sideline is a bad thing for teams in the media's eyes almost exclusively, except maybe when it's a quarterback because he's your quote unquote leader, right?
Right. And it is. It's absolutely ridiculous to me. I'd much rather have the dude that cares too much than doesn't care enough. I mean, I don't need a team full of Kerry Williams.
Yeah.
You know?
Or the dude, what was it, the holder or the kicker coming off the field after the Chargers game? When he bobbled the snap and the Chargers lost, weren't they just kind of goofing off after the game and didn't seem to care much?
Yeah. I mean, that would drive me even more crazy. No doubt about that.
Yeah. I want my players to care about winning.
Let's talk about holding kicks and stuff like that.
Since I brought up the San Diego game, we should talk about. I almost coming into this last game said, and in fact I said it to myself in my head that we hadn't talked about any kind of long snapping issues for the last few games, and how nice that was.
Right? Yeah, you said it in your head, and that was too much.
It was enough to jinx it. Just saying it in my head. It was.
I'm done with Nolan Freese. I'm over it. I mean, he just cost me 4 points in a game that we should have won by 3 scores. I'm done with Nolan Freese. My patience is done. You can't tell me we can't sign Clint Gresham for a can of lima beans and, like $5.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, he's just sitting around.
Right.
Like, what? We can't afford Clint Gresham? We can't fit another long snapper in under the cap? Are you freaking kidding me? I'm done with it. Just bring in a dude that can play. This kid can't play. He's too inconsistent.
Well, you don't want it to happen in a moment where it's really important, right? And when and up to this point, I don't know if we've had that many clutch moments to really gauge. And that's what's really hard for guys in that position, that long snapping position. It's hard to tell when that moment is going to kind of overcome them and they're going to have a hard time, right? Because it takes performance in the high clutch situations, the high stress situations, where you really find out if you are clutch or not.
Yeah. One of the gaps is in the fourth quarter when we're down. I mean, that's high pressure right there.
Yeah, and I don't know if missing the extra point was really his fault. I think Hauschka kicked it too low, for one, but I didn't necessarily see a problem with the snap on that play.
I don't know. It looked a little low and inside to me.
Yeah, well, they were saying just about all of them were low and inside.
That's what I'm saying, man. Like, I have no patience for this.
Yeah.
I don't. Like, look, you know how many gaffes I'll give my long snapper a year? Freaking one, because you're a human being. Otherwise, I don't want to hear your freaking name for the entire season. Except if you make a great tackle, like on a punt or something like that. Straight fire from Adam Emmert. Dude, I just can't.
I know you wanted to win by 3 scores, and the 6 points would have technically gotten you there with the safeties. So I know you're upset.
Right, but that could have easily cost us the game. There's no room for that. Yeah, I'm spitting fire on Freeze. I can't have this.
Fire versus Freeze.
Yeah. Just give me a guy that can do it.
Well, speaking of guys that can do it, Adam, my top player of this game, Earl Thomas. Holy smokes. This was vintage Earl Thomas. Blowing up everything in the middle. This game was the Earl Thomas that I know and love.
Area 29 was definitely a restricted area for the game. There's no doubt about that. There's one hit. I want to say it was on Sanu where he came across the middle, and Earl could have taken his entire head off. Instead, just gave him kind of a nice hit and knocked him down. And Jared had come over to watch a game with me. He goes, man, that boy ought to stand up and shake Earl's hand and thank him for not killing him and ending his career. Because he could have.
I don't know. Number 18, the receiver that had to come out.
That's who it was.
He shook him up pretty bad, and he took a really big shot to the ribs. So maybe it was after that Earl let up a little bit. But his timing was just on point that game.
Right.
I can't even. There was at least 3 or 4 plays where he got there just at the same moment that the ball got there. And you can see a lot of those defenseless receivers calls where the guys go toward the head, but Earl taking the shots right at the midsection of the body and able to knock the ball out. That's the way to do it.
Well, here was the game for Earl to look like Earl again. And we've been waiting for him to dominate a game in the way that he does. And, I could kind of felt with a lot of the long shots that Atlanta takes that this would be a good game for it. And he really did come through. He picked up the slack for not having Cam in there in a lot of ways to set the tone physically throughout the game. And he did. He played a whale of game. I mean, you can't take a darn thing away from Earl. That is for darn sure.
And not only that, he came up with the play of the game, one of the turning points of this game, intercepting a pass that went off of Julio Jones' fingertips.
1st and 10 at his own 39. Ryan will drop back into the shotgun. Freeman stays in the game. Slots to both sides with the play fake. Ryan looks, ball's tipped up in the air, and it is intercepted. It is intercepted, Earl. He's got it coming back near side. Back to midfield. The Seahawks defense. The ball was thrown to Julio Jones. It was tipped in the air by Russell Sherman. Richard Sherman tips it. Earl Thomas picks it off. The Seahawks have life, down by a point with 3:48 to play in the game.
The level of focus and the amount of concentration for Earl Thomas to have that ball bounce off of his fingertips and then catch it off of the bounce of his own fingertips and then to get some yards on the run back too. Just an incredible play by Thomas and a good heads up play by Sherman to put it up in the air a little bit to give Earl some hang time to get under it.
I know they should get a lot of credit and everything, but this is really because of me that they got this interception. I just wanted to make sure everybody knew that, because sitting there with Jared, I was like, oh, this is where we get a pick. I literally said it on the snap just before he threw it. Now, I didn't anticipate the fact that Julio Jones would completely whiff on a ball and then Sherman could start the tip drill for Earl. But look, that's another thing when I hear Atlanta fan crying. Dude, catch the ball. Yeah. Catch the ball right there.
Catch the ball, and maybe don't throw into double coverage when Sherman and Earl Thomas are on Julio Jones.
Right. And, the other thing, too, is they got shut down in the fourth quarter. They didn't do anything after the third quarter. And, if Atlanta fan, you want to win this game, and, the 3 plays leading up to the PI that you're still crying about, maybe don't get blanked on all 3 of those plays. Incomplete. So you're now down to Hail Mary 4th and something. And not only that, even if they throw pass interference there, you're not even in field goal range yet.
You're close.
You're close, but you doesn't mean that you're absolutely going to go down and kick a field goal. Like, you still have plays you have to make out of that. That wasn't the deciding factor. It's not like it was on the 1 or something. Like, you still had plays to make from there. Your kicker could still miss. There's a lot of things that could happen. Refs didn't steal the game from you. You stole the game from you. You could only play 1 good quarter out of 4.
Yeah, and this ref crew, too, pretty notorious for not calling PI coming to this game. And you didn't see a whole lot of pass interference calls. You saw the one where it was just blatantly obvious on Alford. You had another where it was kind of close with another one with Alford on the Falcons. And there were other egregious non-calls in this game, I would think. Notably, when Richard Sherman got Julio Jones' hands to his face right before coming back and breaking up the final pass.
Yeah, he did. Julio Jones gave him a Deacon Jones slap upside the head as he got off the line of scrimmage. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in our Do Better segment, because there's more to that than just Julio cheating on his way down.
But they were letting them play. And if they don't let them play, then they have to flag both Julio and Sherman on that play because of that illegal use of the hands. Then it goes to fourth down again, right? They replay the down. I still like the Seahawks' chances on 4th and 10 because you can see there it was just a desperation move. I said before with the interception, throwing into double coverage. Granted, you have your best receiver, but we have Earl Thomas and Richard Sherman covering that guy on 4th down. That's a desperation play right there.
It is a desperation play.
And it was 4th and 10. They didn't need 40 yards.
No. Yeah, he still heaves it up. That's fine. And that's because he heaved it up hoping he's just going to get a call.
Yeah.
Like that was the play. It wasn't I'm going to complete this. It was I'm going to try to get a pass interference penalty. And look, if you're really big on all these penalties, go back and watch the Monday night game. You like penalties? I think there was like 17 in the first half. Something like that. Yeah. I mean, it literally was unwatchable. I'd rather let the guys play. Yeah. And that includes things like Jermaine Kearse getting interfered with, yet that doesn't get called.
Yeah. Yeah. And that one ended up not mattering too much because they were able to drive down the field and it was actually a pretty heavy pass interference call on Kearse that led to that 1-yard touchdown run by Kristen Michael. And that was the one where Luke Wilson got his knee hammered pretty hard. He goes into surgery. Looks like he's going to be out for a few weeks now.
Okay.
Yeah. Still got 3 tight ends.
Yeah. I hope he has a speedy recovery and all that for sure. I definitely
know you're not a big Luke Wilson fan.
No, I'm not. But that doesn't mean I don't think he's a good dude. I think he's a good dude, and I don't wish him to be hurt.
I love
That's
Luke Wilson.
For darn sure.
And on a play where center Joey Hunt lining up as fullback.
Yeah, got a nice whiff on that.
He had a nice whiff, but he was in there. And I think that just shows that maybe this team really likes Joey Hunt. They're willing to get him in there in a play where he's a fullback and at least give him a chance. Now, it might not prove to be his spot, but he was in there.
Look, nobody's going to replace Mr. T. Like, it's just not happening. I understand they bring in Jamarcus Webb in with Joey Hunt. And boy, Hawk Blogger's really excited about this quote unquote elephant package. Like, I don't need to see this gimmick. I don't. It is better. I'll give it this. It is better than running out of the shotgun on 3rd or 4th and short. I'll take that.
Yeah.
Another guy that maybe isn't my most favorite player, but let's give him a little shine, is rookie Alex Collins scoring his first NFL touchdown.
1st and goal from the 2. Alex Collins in the backfield. He makes one man miss. He fights his way in, and he is in. Touchdown, Seahawks! Alex Collins makes a man miss in the backfield and fights his way across the goal line from 2 yards out, and the Seahawks take a lead 13-3.
Well, one more place where we should give Alex Collins, Adam, some credit.
This is too much.
The 3rd down play where Russell Wilson, it looked like the Falcons had him. And what does he do? Alex Collins kind of releases after bumping a guy, and a little flip from Russell Wilson into Alex Collins' hands, and he runs it for a first down. That was one of the big plays that set him up for the game-winning field goal.
Yeah, in a big moment, and you do have to give him credit for that. I mean, understanding that, to hear him talk about it, he felt guys running kind of towards his back, and him being on the outside. He's like, there's only one reason dudes would be running out there, and that's if they were chasing Russell. So at that point, he decided to turn around and make himself available to be a target. And look, that's part of something that Seattle practices. That's something that they go through every preseason and training camp and all of that, is the play outside of the play and those scramble drills. It's practiced. So it's good to see that everything that Darrell Bevell and the offensive staff go ahead and just shoves down their throat through the offseason manifests itself in a game, and not only that, but in a big spot.
Yeah, and credit to Russell Wilson, too, for the touch on that pass. There were a couple times this game where the pass got away from him a little bit, but then you also saw some passes where he had a little shovel pass to Luke Wilson in one moment, and that's when, without Russell Wilson's ability to really turn on the Jets like he does in the past, being able to reach some of those outlet receivers, those the guys kind of in that short outlet area, to be able to flip the ball to them and allow them to run. We're starting to see that a little bit more now.
Russell Wilson was a maestro in this game. I mean, look, it's not the most compelling stat line ever.
He didn't break 300 yards, but he was still
270 yards and 25 of 35, no touchdowns, but no picks. But he really did get the offense moving up and down the field for the most part for the entire game, especially with no running game going. So give Russell Wilson a lot of credit. And then not only that, but then at the end of the game to take the team down for the field goal and get the win to tie Dave Craig with most game-winning drives in a career for a Seahawks quarterback at 20.
Most game-winning drives, and also the first, was this what got him to 50 wins, 50 regular season wins?
Yeah.
Faster than any other NFL quarterback starting?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's just because he's good, not elite. So
yeah, he's too short. He's too short to play quarterback. Well, let's go back. I want to talk a little bit more. We got an email here from Joey Hall. Says, hey, guys, been listening to the show for a few years now. Moved out to Salt Lake City from Sequim, Washington last year. And I can't thank you guys enough for giving me my Seahawks fix throughout the week, especially since most people here are 49ers and Bronco fans. Wanted to touch on a couple things from this week's game. To all those who say the Falcons got robbed by that no call and the Seahawks got lucky, that is total catfish. How about the Falcons playing well for 1 out of 4 quarters? What about letting the Seahawks score 9, should have been 13, unanswered fourth quarter points? What about Julio dropping a pass that got picked off? And most importantly, watch Julio on that last play smack Sherman across the face coming off the line that allowed him that initial separation that wasn't called. So, in a perfect world, both those penalties would have been called, and the Falcons get another 4th and 10 attempt. Don't hear people upset about that. Don't blame the game on one play at the end, not to mention that PI was not blatant. Watch it in full speed from their angles, and all 3 players are looking for the ball, easy to judge in slow motion, close-up shots. The point is, Seahawks made the plays when it mattered. Anyway, just learned I'm going to be taking a 10-hour drive to Phoenix Saturday night for the game, then driving back through the night after the game to be back at work Monday morning. I predict a great win, 30-17 Hawks on prime time Sunday night. If there are any listeners going to the game, find me on Twitter at jhall2711. So wish me luck, and as always, go Hawks.
I hope a few people do hit him up and you guys can all get together. That'd be pretty sweet. But good luck on your drive back and forth. But I do like his persistence to make sure to get there, see the game, the one that's closest to him in his region, and then hustle it back for work. I mean, give him a pat on the back for that. But
the other thing is energy drinks hard for the drive home because or coffee. Something you're going to need your caffeine for a drive home at night. And another thing that I like to do, too, is I like to buy a big pack of really tough jerky, really, really dry jerky, because that way you're busy. You're keeping yourself busy as you're driving, too.
That's actually something I've picked up from you. It's a solid. It works.
It does.
It works. Yeah. The only thing I can't pick up from you is the energy drink, man.
You got coffee, though. That's your energy drink, Adam.
Yeah. It grows from the ground, dude. Like coffee, those energy drinks, you don't know. There could be synthesized bull testosterone in that, for all you know.
It's true.
Yeah.
How do you don't know I'm not getting my bull testosterone in other ways?
I don't. Maybe that's why your beard's fluffier than mine. I don't know.
Let's talk a little Deshaun Shed, Adam. I got an email here from Kofi in New Jersey. Says, great team win on Sunday. The Seahawks defense had my nerves there for a bit. Had flashbacks to the Bengals and Carolina games, but they got the job done. Deshaun Shed has been a huge part of this 2016 season. He's been solid over the first couple weeks. How do you think he measures up compared to our cornerbacks of the past, Byron Maxwell and Brandan Browner?
He's not as good as Browner at his peak, but he's better than Maxwell at his peak.
Really?
I'll put it to you that way. Yeah.
I don't know if I put him better than... I like the physicality that he has, like Brandan Browner. Byron Maxwell had that little bit of added ability to really knock the ball out of a guy's hand. You don't see a lot of corners with that ability to just punch the ball out and have an awareness of where the football is as he's either making a tackle or going for in coverage.
Yeah, people seem to forget, though, too, that Brandan Browner had like 6-7 interceptions in 2012. And, I mean, he was taking the ball away from people at an epic rate when he was at his peak. That's for sure.
Also got called for a lot more pass interference penalties than
later on
than Shed.
Yeah, so far.
I think even early on he was a PI just because he was so physical.
Right. Yeah. See, I'm fine with that.
Let's talk wide receiver issues. Here's an email from Russ in Denver. Says, hey guys, important win as that was one that could have been a demoralizing loss. I will let you guys handle the third quarter and end of the game kicking meltdown for me. It really seems like since Baldwin took that headshot in the Jets game that the outside receivers have really been quiet. Lockett needs to get healthy and we need more of Curse. Of the 36 targets yesterday, wide receivers only accounted for 16. And at least Jimmy is picking up the slack. He is a beast. I do think there is hope for Adam, though, as my proclamation about Michael being the feature back is looking suspect. He has had back-to-back meh games, so the door is open for Rawls to take over once healthy. Finally, the chatter about the PI no call at the end of the game. I think that gets called if it doesn't look like a desperation play on 4th and 10. There was a lot of hand fighting between Sherman and Jones, but with Sherman looking at the ball, he got the benefit of the doubt, hoping the injury list isn't too bad this week. Go Hawks. So we covered the other stuff, but let's talk about the wide receivers. The wide receivers only getting 16 of those 36 targets.
Yeah, I think it's just a function of who teams are going to try to cover or not cover. I mean, that's really it. I mean, you're going to take what you can get. Now, when it comes to targets and amount of receptions for receivers, that's one of those things. I mean, even look at Julio Jones. I mean, he has his 300-yard game 3 weeks ago, right? Well, the two before that, he had under 100 yards and, it's only a couple catches. Consistently putting up big numbers as a receiving core is harder than it looks. I mean, it's one of those things you're going to have natural ebbs and flows for. And I feel like that's just where we are now. I'm not worried about Baldwin and the fact that he hasn't had a big game in 2 games or anything like that. I'm just glad that the passing offense seems effective, no matter who it is they're going to at any given time. I could care less if it's to the receivers or Jimmy Graham or to the backs or whoever, just as long as it's effective.
Yeah. And, drops were a big problem in this game, I thought, too. There were a couple times, where Graham had one of them, and at least maybe one of the backs.
CJ Spiller had one.
Yeah, CJ Spiller had one. So
and those were some drive killers too.
I know.
And those are easy things. Those are easy things that we can clean up. And yeah, I guess overall, when I look back on it, and I think about kicking game mistakes, drop passes, a couple miscommunications in a secondary, those are all fixable problems, correct? I mean, those are things that you don't see on a general basis. Just not having enough talent at any given position group, or not having a good scheme overall, or just struggling as a team on one side of the ball. Like, that's much harder to fix. These are little things that we can easily fix. And not only that, we had all these little breakdowns this team doesn't normally have, and yet still beat what's quote unquote one of the better teams in the NFC.
They are a lot better than we expected, though, I think.
They're a one and done playoff team.
Yeah, it depends on who they get in the first round.
Doesn't depend at all, because they're not going to have home field advantage throughout the playoffs.
No, they'll have home field, though. They might get a wild card home field, right? Or do you think they get a bye week? No, they don't get a bye week.
No, they don't get a bye week.
Because you have Minnesota and Dallas tearing it up right now.
Right. So, I mean, look, if the second Atlanta has to go on the road, it's done for them. This brand of football doesn't play in cold weather playoff games. It just doesn't. Good luck with that.
Here's a comment from Austin Maloney via Facebook. Hey guys, what an amazing nail biter of a game. I have a few things I'd like to share. It was great to see our defense stop the top rated offense with Cam and Frank Clark missing the whole game and Bennett getting knocked out in the third quarter. That hit on Bennett was complete catfish. How is that not a penalty? I like how all the press coverage is focusing on the last missed pass interference call. I wonder if these quote unquote journalists even bothered to watch the rest of the game, because I saw 2 clear missed PI calls that the Falcons got away with. Wouldn't the Seahawks defense beating the top rated offense down 2.5 of their best players have been a better headline? Anyway, that's enough venting for now. We got the win, and so far it sounds like Bennett will be able to play next week. Go Hawks.
Whew, and that was a relief, wasn't it?
Oh my goodness.
I mean, you saw Bennett go down. I was just like, oh God, no. Like it's just one of the dudes you can't afford to lose.
Well, it was right about that same time where the Falcons scored the go-ahead touchdown, if not the same exact play. And that just felt, that was deflating.
It was very deflating, and it was highly worrisome. I mean, my heart was in my throat. There's no doubt about it. But thank goodness it sounds like, and he's had these sort of things before, right? Where we've seen him get banged up like that, and you're like, oh God, that looks awful.
Yeah.
And you think he's going to be done, and yet still comes out, and then is still effective the next game. Yeah. And I think that's something we get to look forward to coming up on this Arizona game.
And boy, was he effective in this game. 5 quarterback hits in only 2.5 quarters. 5 hits on the quarterback. That's a huge game for Michael Bennett. Combine that with, the 2 sacks by Cliff Averill, building 2 more houses. He's up to 4 houses for Haiti now, then because he's building a house for every sack that he gets, and then also
now, is he building it himself, or is he going to hire people to do it?
He might hire people to do it. He may not build it with his own hands. But,
I was going to say that's tough to get 4 houses done in an off season already, man. Like it's a lot of work.
That's a lot of work. But. Yeah, that, and then Cassius Marsh got a critical sack on 3rd down that allowed the Seahawks to set up that final drive for the field goal. Mm-hmm. So the defensive line working in this game, Adam.
Hey, Jaron Reed getting a sack too. So give him some credit.
Absolutely.
It was honestly, despite a short stretch, the Seahawks defense played a heck of a game, and I expect them to carry that over again into next week.
One last email before we get to the Cardinals matchup. Adam from Travis in Spokane says, wow, what a great win against the Falcons. That could really set us up late in the season when it comes down to tiebreakers for the playoffs. This is going to be a great game against the Cardinals on Sunday night. Speaking of the Cardinals, I saw Drew Stanton doing a stupid dance on the sideline and a great run by David Johnson on Monday night against the Jets. Can we have someone accidentally level him on the sideline, since he probably won't see the game? Go Hawks.
What, are you channeling your inner Greg Williams now, dude? Like, you've been throwing out a bounty?
Yeah, targeting the backup quarterback on the sideline.
Here's the thing. I got $5. I'm in.
We can all chip in $5.
Yeah, it was stupid. Jeez Louise. Frickin' Drew Stanton and his, that Cardinals team is so full of itself, and they are so bad. Like, it's unbelievable.
Well, speaking of chipping in, one great way to help out the show is by buying tickets to this game. You can go to Seahawkerspodcast.com/tickets, and you can see all the agencies who kick back a little portion to us, as much as 12% if you use Ticket Network. So you can go to Seahawkerspodcast.com/tickets.
You bet. That helps us out a ton. So if you do that, I mean, if you're going anyway, I mean, geez Louise,
go to the game. Have fun.
Chant Seahawks at the end and, get everybody fired up.
And we'll hear you on TV.
Yeah. Because that stadium's going to be quiet by the second half.
Because all Cardinals fans will have left, and it'll just be Seahawks fans left to cheer on.
That's exactly what I'm trying to say. That's exactly what I'm trying to say.
Well, tickets right now under $100. So, yeah, you can get 2 people into a game in Arizona for the price of what you can get in at CenturyLink.
Yeah.
But yes, a huge matchup with the Cardinals this week. I guess the quote unquote surging Cardinals who have won in back-to-back weeks against the 1-5 San Francisco 49ers and the 1-5 New York Jets. This is a big game though, Adam, because a Seahawks win means they go up 2.5 games in the standings. The Seahawks will go to 5-1. The Cardinals will go to 3-4. And the Seahawks lose though. That puts the Cardinals only a half game back of the Seahawks. So this is a big swing game.
I don't put too much stock into the half game.
It'll be a 1-game lead because the Seahawks will win when the Cardinals have a bye week.
Correct. And so here's the thing. Look, we all know the Rams aren't going to be real competition in this division. I mean, they can't get Todd Gurley on track, and Case Keenum's not going to carry that team for an entire season. It's just not going to happen.
There was a good one game for Keenum, though.
He's had a couple of decent games. I mean, give him a little bit of credit. Like, he's done all right. But your biggest competition in this division is easily the Arizona Cardinals. And the thing about the Cardinals is they've only played 2 good teams so far this year. And one of them didn't have a certain guy named Genghis Tom when they played and still lost.
Yeah.
At home.
In their opener.
And this is a team that got trampled by the Buffalo Bills, who I'm not sure if they're good or bad yet, but the only good-ish team that they played. The only game they've looked very dominant in was against the Buccaneers, and I can say with confidence they're awful. So I look at this Cardinals team, and they're still not firing in all cylinders. This offense, even though is still ranked relatively highly. I mean, I believe they're 10th in the league on offense. They're still not that same offense that you're used to seeing with the Arizona Cardinals.
Yeah, and this defense shows that it can really step up and play when they're playing a top offense. Going back and looking at some of the history versus the Cardinals, the only time versus the Cardinals Russell Wilson has lost in Glendale was the very first game of his career. Braylon Edwards, the leading receiver in that game. And
also the guy who couldn't haul in the game-winning freaking touchdown.
Right.
That Russell put right on his hands.
And since that game, they've won 34-22 in 2013, 35-6 in 2014, 36-6 last year as the Cardinals were getting ready to go into the playoffs. And meanwhile, they lost at home in Seattle, but only in odd years. So this is an even year, which means we're sweeping the Cardinals this year, Adam.
Well, what it means is pencil in 30-plus points.
Right.
Against this team. Their defense, again, you look at the rankings and all that stuff, and they rank fairly high, but you look at the competition. This has been their schedule. Patriots, Bucks, Bills, Rams, Niners. Okay? Patriots without Tom Brady, still couldn't hold them down. Bills ran roughshod over them. Rams aren't a good team. We saw that. We held them to 9 points and basically no offense. I mean, and they still put up 17 points against the Cardinals. The Niners game, they were close to being done at half against the Niners. The Niners choked that game away with turnovers and things of the sort. And then the Jets, they're just such a joke these days. I mean, they really have just totally lost any respectability in this league. And so for the Cardinals to come out and put a convincing win against the Jets, whoop-de-doo-dah, man. I've watched this defense kind of struggle this year in spurts. I mean, there were a lot of open guys in that 49ers game that Blaine Gabbert just plain missed. I think Russell Wilson's going to tear these guys apart. Pencil in 30-plus points.
Well, I will say that, on their defensive side, they do have some guys that you need to be concerned about. Patrick Peterson, really, really good corner. Their right side, which go against our left side of the offensive line, that right side of their defensive line with Calais Campbell and Chandler Jones, Chandler Jones being one of the top pressure guys in the league right now.
Is he? I mean, is he statistically?
Statistically, he is number 2 for quarterback pressures.
Because here's the thing. As much Cardinals football as I've watched this year, you know how many times I've heard Chandler Jones' names called?
He's not getting there, but he's getting pressure.
Yes, I don't know, man. Belichick looks like he's gotten the way better end of that trade.
Yeah. Well, if the Cardinals go to 3-4 after this game,
look, I'll give you Marcus Golden. That guy's playing.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he's had a sack in every game this year.
Well, see, that goes back to their draft, Adam, where they got Marcus Golden in the second round, and then in the third round, David Johnson. Are you ready to reconsider your position on David Johnson, Adam?
No. He's a league average back.
What?
He's a league average back.
I'm willing to accept your opinion that Todd Gurley isn't good, but David Johnson's a special player.
He's not special.
Yeah,
I don't.
He's good.
I've yet to have. There's been one run. He's given me one run where I looked at and went, wow. And everybody tried to compare it to a Beastquake run, and it wasn't even close. He's a very good back. I mean, he's Eddie George. He's Robert Smith. But
Pro
he's no
Bowl
Marshall
caliber players.
Yeah, pretty good. I mean, but they're not special players. I don't think of Eddie George as a special back. I don't think of Robert Smith as a special back.
Yeah.
A guy who was good for a few years and great. Fantastic. That's all he is.
Robert Smith has a few more seasons. He's in the Hall of Fame.
Is he?
Yeah. Oh, he was solid when he was with the Vikings.
Solid, exactly, just solid.
But he didn't do it over a long career. That's what I'm saying. If David Johnson plays like he has been and puts in a 10, 11, 12 year career, putting up these kinds of numbers, you're going to look at him.
He's a compiler to me at that point. He doesn't have a lot of burst. He doesn't have a lot of wiggle. I don't know. I don't see it. I still don't.
Okay.
I just don't. And look, here's the thing. This Carolina or this Arizona offense, this is all predicated on their run. When they run well, they win games. David Johnson's been the only guy saving their season so far.
Yeah.
I'll give him that credit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He's the reason why they have their last 2 wins.
The Atlanta Falcons were the 7th best rushing team in the league or something like that coming into the game. A lot of their wins have been predicated, again, on the run, and nobody seems to focus on that. And we held them to 50-odd some yards. David Johnson isn't going to... We shut down David Johnson every time we see him. Maybe that's why I'm not like on the David Johnson hype.
I think that's a big part of it because, and I agree, I think the Seahawks defense can shut down David Johnson. And when you do that, then you think about the way Carson Palmer is playing this season. And the other thing about the Cardinals, they don't ever seem to be willing to change their offensive game plan, right? Even with Carson Palmer out, they're all about taking deep shots down the field. And Carson Palmer this year has 5 interceptions, and they're all on passes of 15 yards or more. And they aren't willing to check down and keep and kind of shorten up that passing game for Carson Palmer. They always want to take the big shots, right? And it surprises me that as Carson Palmer gets a little older, they may not be willing to make those adjustments.
They'll never make any adjustments. How many times has Bruce Arians told him his hat looks stupid, yet he still wears it? He's the most stubborn coach in the NFL. They're going to try to chuck it deep against a defense that has historically shut them down. Especially this year with Carson Palmer making even shakier decisions than usual. Cam Chancellor being back in the game. Please try to throw it deep on the LOB. Let's go there. Let's have a great time doing that. These guys don't have a tight end that scares me. These guys, basically, it's shut down David Johnson. We win the game. That's really it. I'd love to give you a real fancy analysis of this whole game. Shut down David Johnson. We win the game. Larry Fitzgerald is going to get a few catches. Absolutely. But he hasn't had a catch over, I believe it's 29 yards all year. Like, he's had a lot of catches, but it's all short stuff now because Father Time's catching up to him. Like, he's just not the deep threat that he once was.
That's fine. He's still their best receiver.
Mad respect. Yeah, look, I'll tell you, Larry Fitzgerald's a great player.
He's one of my favorite players.
That's a great player. That's a special player. Yeah, that's what special looks like. Look, then the idea that, Michael Floyd's going to beat you? That dude, he's been in witness protection all year. He's barely had an impact on this team. And the rest of that receiving core...
Don't say Michael Floyd's name. Not in this show, Adam, because I feel like when we called out Michael Floyd last year, he went off on the game against us. So we best keep Michael Floyd's name out our mouths.
You know who I'm not scared of? Michael freaking Floyd. He's a terrible receiver, and he's going to look terrible in this game. I'm not afraid. Get out of here with that.
You jinxed us last year. You bet. I'm calling you out.
Deshaun Shedd is a lot better than Kerry Williams.
Oh, that's true.
Okay. Like, I'll take the facts, logic, and reason on this one.
Yeah. You're not going to take superstition?
No. I'm going with actual players on the field. I don't fear this. I don't fear this Arizona offense. I think it's easy to get them out of rhythm and out of sync. And especially when you know that it's all going to be, power type runs with David Johnson. That's something that we stop really, really well. Good luck with it, fellas. It's going to be a long day for the Cardinals.
And I really like the matchup. If Bennett's back in this game, Frank Clark sounds like he's going to be back in this game.
Sounds like they'll both play.
I will say one thing about Carson Palmer. When you blitz him, he has done really well this season at his QB rating when blitz this year over 100. And not a lot of quarterbacks can do that, right? A lot of guys, when you put a lot of pressure with the blitz, they don't complete a lot of passes. But with Carson Palmer under pressure this year, when you just run 4 guys, if you are getting to him, he's got a quarterback rating of under 70, and a lot of his picks come when he isn't blitzed. So his interceptions this year have come when he's had no pressure and not being blitzed. And throwing picks.
I think you really hit the nail on the head. He does play well against pressure, and he has made a lot of mistakes when he has to throw into coverage. And Chris Richard isn't a dummy. He's smarter than both of us combined, and I'm sure he's seen that too. I expect them to definitely play a lot more coverage and not have as many blitzes as you've seen. He'll still blitz now and then, but the reason why you don't need to blitz in this game, Brandon, to get your pressure is their two starting guards are out.
Yeah.
Evan Mathis and Mike Kupati. They're out, dude. They're a couple of their better players. That makes it a lot easier to get an interior pass rush going. Man, it's going to be...
I was surprised that the Jets didn't get more of a pass rush and get more pressure. Because even when they blitzed Palmer, they didn't get a lot of pressure on him.
This team's quit.
I feel
like that. The Jets have quit on their season.
I feel like the Jets quit a little bit in that game. Their defense did not look how I expected that front line to look.
Nope. They really haven't for a couple weeks. I mean, as big and bad as they didn't even look like themselves when we played them.
All right, Adam. Well, I think that that does it for our look in this game against the Cardinals. Definitely feeling good about the idea of going to 5-1, getting almost 3 games up on the Cardinals. This is the Seahawks' opportunity to really take a hold of this division, and I would be really upset if they let that slip away.
That's just it, man. There's points in the season you got to decide what type of team you're going to be, and this team seems to be a dominant team this year, the Seahawks. And the national media are finally starting to recognize it. Somehow it takes them a long time every year. But if you want to put your foot on the throat of a rival, this is the game to do it, and I look for them.
All right, well, what do you say? Let's hear a little bit from Clinton Bonner on what he's got in this week's 3 in, 3 out.
On this week's 3 in, 3 out, we take a quantum leak and look back at the Battle of Fire and Matty Ice. How did one Seahawk make it in and out in the same game? And why did Earl's dance moves get us all grooving like it was 2013? This week proved that sometimes 75% is all we got, and it's all we need. So read this week's 3 in, 3 out, exclusively written for the Seahawkers podcast.
And like Clinton said, 75% of the time, it works every time. Just in this week's 3 in, 3 out. Always like a good Sex Panther reference.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, we are back from the break. The Seahawkers podcast is the official podcast of the official booster club of the Seattle Seahawks. Coming up Thursday night, the Montana Seahawkers meeting up 5 to 9 at the Native Grill and Wings on Reserve Street in Missoula. Native Grill donating 15% of your tab toward the Montana Food Bank Network. You got to bring in a flyer that's going around with the Montana Seahawkers, and they'll be there to watch Packers take on the Bears.
Super cool, man. That'll be a really interesting game, by the way, I actually think.
It's shaping up to be that way. And October 23rd, the South Seahawkers chapter are getting together at 5:30 for Sunday Night Football at Round Table Pizza in Burien to watch the Seahawks game. So, if you're in the area, be there with the South Seahawkers chapter.
Very cool, man.
All right, well, before we get into what we're going to talk about in the second half of the show, do better at life, let's talk about this week's picks, Adam. I know you've been wanting to talk about
this week's picks. Yeah, let's talk about this week's picks. Who did well this week, Brandon?
Oh, Adam, you did well this week.
What? No way. I had no idea.
Milk Pancakes finishing 160 points this week on the leaderboard.
Strong, baby. That was a strong week.
I know. Yeah. I know you're feeling good about that.
I am. That's it. Yeah.
Don't act like you didn't know, because you were telling me all about it all weekend long about how good your picks were.
I'm stunned. I had no idea. I hadn't tallied them up at all.
Well, as we look at the Pick'em leaderboard, AK 12th man in the lead for the Steve Largent jersey. That's not Adam Emmert with 800 points.
Okay.
Easley Street at 790, Drop Bears right behind. So, Adam, you got a ways to go before you get in the lead for the Largent jersey.
Oh, okay. Hey, I'm coming, though.
But man, AK 12th man, I looked at our list. I do not have your team name registered. So, for anybody, if you're in the Pick'em League, go to SeahawkersPodcast.com. Look for the link to register your team name. That way, I know who you are. I can email you if you're when you're the winner of any particular week, because we do have prizes for our Patron League winners week to week. And let's look at our Seahawkers podcast leaderboard. For the KJ Wright football, we have M. Jelly 20 in the lead with 820 points. Bullbuster 810 at second place, and AK 12th man also in that group too at 800 points. And the winner for week 6, Iceman 3691.
Well done, people. You guys you stop doing so well. I mean, I'm trying to catch up. I'm going to have more big weeks like this, but Man.
Yeah, Iceman and then in the Patron League, the winner, A Curse Upon Thee. Both of them just edged you out, Adam, by just a couple points. That they picked much tighter games. Their losses, those games were much tighter than the ones you picked. So,
hey, look, A Curse Upon Thee was going to be my name that I picked this week for best name of the week, but since they edged me out like that can't be it. I'm going with somebody else.
Well, they're getting a prize anyway because they won the Patron League picks.
Exactly. They don't get double prizes. That's what I'm trying to get at. So with that, my pick this week is Frank Clark Griswold.
There you go.
I just like that. I like to play on a Chevy Chase character. That's fantastic.
Well, that might be Clinton Bonner because I know he's a big Frank Clark fan, and he was handing out stickers in New York, so he would already have one.
Wait, Clinton Bonner hands out stickers?
He did. He went to
what's amazing, Brandon, is I put a new sticker on my car yesterday.
What?
Yeah, somebody mailed me a sticker. It might have been Clinton Bonner. Might have gotten me stickers here a little faster than you could have from half a country away.
Well, Clinton a little more on the ball than me, I guess. But guess what, Adam? I do have a
big
stack
thanks to Clinton. Yeah,
I do have a stack of envelopes and a stack of stickers. The envelopes now. See, we talked about this last week that I had the envelopes, I had the stickers, and I had the stamps. The stamps now on the envelopes. The envelopes are addressed. All I have to do, put the stickers in the envelopes and seal them up and mail them off. So week to week, it's incremental. I'm getting closer.
Yeah, no, you're doing well. Hey, and look, if anybody wants us to go faster, if anybody would like to volunteer to take over sticker distribution, please hit us up. That's a great way you could help out.
We'll find a way to make it worth it for you, whether it's Seahawks gear, it's something.
Yeah, something, man. Yeah, we'll figure out something.
We will make arrangements.
Yes.
Maybe you don't get bonus content and you want that. I can make it happen.
Right.
All right. Speaking of bonus content, we have some new members of the flock. Let's welcome them. Starting off with Jonathan Stein, a $3 pledge, and gets him into the Patron League of Pick'ems. And he sent along a note. John in Richfield says, Flocktober is a great month to join the flock and support the show. I especially like your Prisco's World segment. Hopefully, we'll hear it again soon.
I hope so, too. He just needs to say something else nonsensical.
And he does that week to week, but nonsensical things about the Seahawks in particular.
Right. I like that, Flocktober. I don't know how we didn't coin that before. So I think our push for the month of Flocktober, for you to get in the flock, we want to go from about 125 patrons or so, you amazing, generous people you are. We want to pump that up to 150 by the end of Flocktober. Get in the flock in Flocktober.
And go to getintheflock.com and get there. Yeah, 150 is a good goal to reach for Flocktober, and we're halfway through the month, and that'll help get us closer. We're almost there, Adam, to our level to where we'll be putting out some nice bonus content in the off season. So that's our next goal, and then from there, we're of course looking to get the 3 shows a week, the post game show where we'll deliver a show right after the game, and yeah, we're almost there.
We're almost there. So keep on it, folks. We appreciate it a ton. And remember, don't screw this up. It's Flocktober.
Welcome to the flock to Garrett Strachan Banks. $3 pledge. Garrett here up in Northern Ontario, Canada. He says, hey guys, love your show. Up here in Northern Ontario, there isn't much Seahawks talk going around. It's greatly refreshing hearing your opinions on the matter. Was wondering what your thoughts are on why we stopped blitzing Matt Ryan so much in the second half. We gave him the business in the first. Dan Quinn was really upset after that last call. Well, that's what you get when you opt for more money to go to Atlanta. I've been listening to your show since August and have really recently become a patron, $3 a month member, also subscribed a monthly fee for your podcast. I love hearing your extra shows. They're a great way to stay up to date with everything Seahawks and NFL without the typical media.
Catfish!
Was a great victory on the Falcons. Peace.
Peace, Garrett. You know what? That's the exact type of guy that we like to attract into the show, man. I mean, you're spot on with everything. And that's right. That's what Dan Quinn gets.
And I liked how Garrett said he was from Northern Ontario. I looked up where Garrett is from, And I have to wonder, is anything north of Toronto considered northern? Because I looked up his town expecting him to be like near Hudson Bay, and he's less than 30 miles from Lake Huron. He's like almost right on the Great Lakes. And he says he's from northern Ontario.
Well, here's the thing, Brandon. Is Ontario north of us right now?
Well, it is, but...
Okay, then he's in northern Ontario.
It's still southern Ontario.
No, it's northern to us. Well, it's all about perspective.
So we say we're in western Montana. Is that can it not be considered western since we're east of Washington?
Right. If you're in Seattle right now and we say we're from western Montana, you go, no, you're just from Montana. Or no. Yeah, because exactly. We're on the wrong side.
That doesn't make sense.
Yeah. But now if you live over in like St. Louis, then we're all from western Montana. Whether you're on the west side or east side of the divide or not. So
he can't say he's in northern Ontario then because Alaska is more north than Ontario.
Well, he can't say it to Alaskan people.
Okay. Glad we got that nailed down.
Yeah.
Welcome to the flock to for Sheezy. I think that's how you say it.
Yeah, for Sheezy.
For Sheezy, $1 pledge. And also welcome
gets in the bonus shows, man.
Gets the bonus shows, gets the stickers that I'm going to be sending out. Although now that the address labels are already on the envelopes, this you might be waiting till next year for Sheezy.
No, unless we get a sticker sending volunteer.
And
which we really need.
And a welcome to the flock to Graham Doherty Walthew. In for $1, the sticker and the bonus shows. I finally got around to joining the flock. Being a poor student, I am used to paying and contributing as little as I can. So that is a testament to the great job you guys do. Keep up the great work.
Trust me, I am very flattered that a poor college student would donate to the show. Thanks, dude.
Yeah, thanks, Graham. And now, Graham, now that you're doing one less load of laundry each month, here's a tip. Here's a tip that I learned during my time in the Navy. You can easily go about a week on one pair of underwear. You go 2 days the normal way, 1 day backwards because backwards feels a little bit strange, but it'll feel cleaner. And then you turn them inside out and repeat. Boom, saving laundry on laundry and saving water. Wow,
look at you. That I hope that doesn't become a cry for environmentalists that we should all do that. I prefer to not to.
Well, I never understood why we had to work so hard to conserve water on the ship. You know, we're surrounded by water,
right? Yet
we're working hard to like take short showers and things.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, that seems crazy, especially because you were on an aircraft carrier, right?
No, it was a smaller ship.
Oh, okay. I thought you were on an aircraft carrier.
I
have like a nuclear power plant. Like you have unlimited power. Have a little desal plant on there.
Yeah.
Like there's no excuse to not to.
Leave the lights on all night long. It's okay.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Well, Adam, we mentioned the website getintheflock.com. It worked pretty well, right? The fear tactic worked. We did better than the week before.
We did. Yeah.
So I don't know. What do we use this week? Do we...
we used rhyming. We used a pun. Flocktober.
Like
get into Flocktober.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. I like it.
Yeah. So get in, and we presented a new goal. Let's get to 150 patrons. Because here's the thing. That's less than. I mean, what is that on a percentage of the people that listen every week, Brandon?
It's
like
it's
2%.
It's like 2%.
Yeah. Like, come on. That means 98% of you are freeloading. Let's go.
Yeah, see, even a poor college student like Graham is willing to wear underwear multiple days to give $1.
Exactly, man.
All right, let's get into emails, Adam. I know we read a lot.
Yes.
And mixed them in during the show, but we do have more email.
Which is awesome.
And actually, let's start off with a review. Got a review from the UK, a UK bandwagon fan since 2005, it says in the subject. FCox92, pretty decent podcast when you get past the American accents. Wish I knew where Missoula was, though.
It's a cool place where the accents sound even more American.
Here's an email from Jessica in Auburn, Washington. Says, I grew up in a Seahawks family, but have only grown into my own as a Seahawks fan in the last couple of years. Listening to your podcast has helped me understand the nuances of our team and of the game in general, giving me a deeper appreciation of what I'm watching. One pretty basic thing I've wondered about is the numbering system for players and jerseys. Do certain number ranges mean certain positions? And if they do, and a player changes positions between seasons, would his number change? Thanks. I feel like understanding the numbers better will make it easier to keep track of the action, players on the field when it's happening, instead of always waiting for the announcer to help explain what I just saw. From Jessica.
Jessica, that is an excellent question. And I think understanding the number systems would help quite a bit. I know it does help me. I'm sure it helps you as well, Brandon. So in general, there are basic groupings where certain position groups are represented by certain numbers. Oftentimes, you'll see offensive linemen be in the 50s through 70s usually. You'll see...
Yeah, 60s and 70s for offensive linemen. Receivers you'll see in the teens or the 80s. Fullbacks you see in the 30s and 40s. Same with running backs, also in 30s, 40s, maybe 20s.
20s, yeah, a lot of 20s.
Quarterbacks in the single digits and in the teens. So there is some overlap, and so it does get used to understanding, I know for me when, Mike Williams was a wide receiver for the Seahawks, wore number 17, a number that Dave Craig wore as quarterback for so many years. It looked weird to me. Right. But yes, recently wide receivers have taken numbers in the teens. Switching over to defense, you see players in the secondary, right, wearing anywhere from the 20s to the 40s. Mm-hmm. Linebackers generally in the 40s and 50s. And then defensive linemen, those are your guys in the 90s and in the 70s.
Yeah. So in general, the larger the number, generally the closer they are to the line of scrimmage.
Yeah.
Basically, you get more into the skill positions and you get to the smaller numbers. That's the easiest way to do it.
Yeah, that's a good way of looking at it.
Yeah.
Well, hope that helps, Jessica. We got a call here, Adam, from one of our members of the flock, Ella.
All right.
Hey guys, it's Ella down here in Texas. Just finished listening to the last podcast and I noticed that you guys called Fitzpatrick the Beard, which is totally appropriate. But just a tidbit, when Fitzpatrick was playing with the Texans, and we have a lot of Texans friends and family, we noticed that they call him the Lorax, which I think is also very fitting. Anyway, on another note, I noticed in last night's game that Okung had the holding call. I just wanted to know if you guys were ready to blame him for having to call back the touchdown by Anderson and then the subsequent turnover. Anyway, keep up the good work. Go Hawks.
Now, she's talking about after the Denver game, right? That on Thursday night. And we've been talking all year about how Okung has been kind of making us feel bad because he hasn't been penalized much. Yet, in that game, one of his penalties brought back a touchdown.
In fact, Ella, I texted Jared right after that happened. I said, finally, the back-breaking Okung penalty that we've all been waiting for. Here it is.
It only took a quarter of the season to get there. A little over a quarter.
And the Lorax might be stronger than the Beard. That might be a better nickname.
Who would Fitzgerald speak for? You know how the Lorax speaks for the trees.
Oh, really? Oh, I can say I don't know much about that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, see, the Lorax shows up when the dude chops down the tree to make his little thneed that he sells. Okay. And that's when the Lorax shows up and tells him that to stop cutting down all his trees.
Gotcha. So I think Fitzpatrick speaks for all journeyman quarterbacks everywhere that are mistreated.
Okay. All right. And speaking of members of the flock, we have some anniversaries this week, Adam. So shout out to Summer Bow, who's been with us for a year now.
All right.
Sven Purs, John Paul Campbell up there in Alaska with the Matsu Seahawkers, and James Muir.
Awesome. Yeah, those are all very familiar names. Summer, I don't know why you haven't been joining us on the Hangouts. I mean, it hurts my feelings, but it's fine. It's okay. I just cry myself to sleep. It's not a big deal.
Not a big deal. Yeah, I've just had to console him for at least a half hour afterward.
Look, which, I mean, honestly, when most of the people miss, I get upset. I get bummed out because we had a few of the newer members, like a few people accept the invitation this week and not show up.
Yeah, like Jimmy Holman. Where was he?
Yeah. Where were you, Jimmy?
That's 2 weeks in a row that you've accepted the invitation and then not shown.
Not shown. So I don't know.
Do better, Jimmy.
Jimmy's a giant tease. That's what Jimmy is.
TR Boone at Boone Tanner. That's Boone with an E, Tanner on Twitter. Just wanted to thank you guys for helping me up my 12dom. I've been a Seahawks fan for a long time, but I recently started listening to the podcast to pass the time as I drove from Polson to Ronan, both places in Montana. for work, and now I drive from Great Falls to Missoula. I look forward to your podcast every week, almost as much as I look forward to the Hawks kicking ass on Sunday, or whatever day of the week they play on. Go Hawks.
Hey, man, go Hawks. Look, that Great Falls to Missoula trip, that's a heck of a lot longer than your Polson to Ronan trip that you were doing, and a lot crookeder. That's for sure.
It's pretty, though.
It is pretty, but tell me, that Polson to Ronan jaunt is pretty gorgeous, too. I mean, the Mission Mountains.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
That's the best mountain range in all of Montana.
And then coming into Polson from Ronan, overlooking Flathead Lake, that's one of my best views. That's
a solid view. Yeah, I'm going to say it now, just so it's on record somewhere. When I die, burn me up and spread my ashes at Gray Wolf Lake in the Mission Mountains. Do that. There. Now it's on legal record.
Now it's on legal record.
I've told a lot of people, but I just wanted to make sure.
Make sure this gets to Isabel.
Yes.
All right. Tim Moon on Facebook says winning a game like that is a whole lot like kissing your sister. Although I don't have a sister, so I'm not sure. I know it is a win in the standings, but it sure doesn't feel like one. And this came in from Tim Moon right after the PI. And I think a lot of us right after the game kind of felt like, oh, well, I mean, it's a win, but and that was before that we saw the kind of egregious hands to the face by Julio Jones that made us feel a little bit better.
Is that how you felt after that? You know how I felt after that? Suck it, Atlanta. Like, that's exactly how I felt. That really didn't upset me in any way. I had no ill feelings about that whatsoever.
I like the dude on Twitter who found the field goal kick by the Falcons in the divisional championship, that game-winning field goal kick, showing one of the Falcons linemen holding on to the leg of Red Bryant as the field goal was being kicked. So there was a holding penalty in that game too that didn't get called.
Oh yeah, exactly. And look, that whole thing, like, if that would have been called, we would have won that game for sure.
Yeah. Here's an email from Graham in St. Andrews, Scotland. Hey guys, really enjoyed the podcast last week episode. You asked Scott how the CenturyLink atmosphere compared to British stadiums. I haven't been to a Seahawks game, but I do know my other team, Celtic FC, have one of the best atmospheres in the world and would give 12s a run for their money. Keep up the great work.
Them fighting words. Them fighting words, but at least he ended it with Go Hawks. So yeah. that works out.
He made up for it. Jace in Bremerton, and that's Chase and Jace 1214 on Twitter. I'm headed to my first game tomorrow, and I am going with my mom, who surprised me with tickets on Friday. I'm a huge fan of your guys' show, and I am making a commitment to become a member of the flock as soon as we win this game against Dan Quinn's version of the Falcons. My mother also gave me tickets to the December 15th Thursday night football game and would love to meet up with you guys and get some autographs whenever possible. Thanks, and go Hawks.
Oh, go Hawks, Chase. Hey, look, the Falcons held up their end of the deal. They won the game, or they lost the game. We won. And so now, like you said, once we won, then you're going to get in the flock. So be sure to do that.
He'll be a official Flocktober member.
Right. Now, I don't know that we're going to be out for that Thursday night game. We're going to be out for the Monday night game for Buffalo.
That's right. We will be at the end, and I think we are preparing a meetup for Sunday night. Yeah. So during the Sunday night football game, that's going to be the Broncos and the Raiders, I think.
Correct. Yeah. So we're going to, if you are in the Seattle area and you do want to meet up and say, hey, we're going to set something up for the Sunday night preceding the Buffalo game.
Yeah, and we'll bring stickers as well. So anybody who wants to show up, tune in. We'll be putting those details out either on Facebook, on the show. Where I'm thinking we're going to meet is with the Military Seahawkers tailgate on Sunday night, because they're getting together early. They're getting together on Sunday night, and then we're going to have we're going to be tailgating there throughout the day on Monday too. But Sunday night, and that is on Utah Avenue South. Right around 1600 Utah Avenue South. So that's the tentative plan of where we'll be.
Yes, weather permitting. Weather
permitting.
That's the goal.
Out in the open. It will be November in Seattle, so you never know. We might have to move inside.
Which I don't know that I'd be sad about.
All right, Adam, what do you say we get into some do better and better at life?
Sounds good, man. I'm gonna go first here with my do better, because I don't know about you, Brandan, but I like conspiracy theories. Now,
you know about me. You know I like them too. Stop it.
I know. All right. But I don't often believe in any of them.
Oh,
but it's fun to go down the rabbit hole, right?
Yeah, of course.
I mean, just to see how far the crazy goes, just to know what maybe some other people are thinking and whether or not I need to start wearing tinfoil hats or not. But this is a real live conspiracy, Brandon. This is something you can check out with your own two eyes. And as we've all suspected, Brandon, there's an East Coast bias against the Seahawks, not just by the general populace on the East Coast, but from the NFL offices itself. You mentioned the mic'd up video from this last game earlier. And if you look carefully, they show the final play, right? With the controversial pass interference.
Yeah, this is on Inside the NFL, right?
Yes, on Inside the NFL. And what you'll notice is that there's something strange. Kind of like in the Zapruder film, like there's a jump cut or two in there and people wonder like what's going on and things like that. I think the NFL took a little liberty, let's say, with their editing. So the beginning of the play starts off and there's Julio Jones running down the field unimpeded. The only problem is that Richard Sherman's nowhere in the frame. The only problem is there's never a shot of him smacking Richard Sherman upside the head like a rag doll and then trying to push him off of him. And then it cuts back to close to the catch, and there Richard Sherman is with his hands on the arm, and of course, it's pass interference and things like that. The NFL, or Inside the NFL, edited in a different beginning of the play when Julio Jones started the play to cut out the fact that he also committed a foul on the play. It's a conspiracy, Brandon. And those catfish need to do better.
Yeah, when I saw that, I had to wonder. There's a little bit something to this because it gets right into my do better too, and that's the narrative that you see coming out of this game, and that pass interference, Adam, needs to be subject to replay review. And remember this play, because remember it when it comes down to the point of reviewing pass interference calls. Illegal hands to the face is something that's much more of a black and white call, right? Because if you have your hand hitting a guy's helmet and showing force, that's an easy call. That's an easy call to make in review. Right. Yet that's not a reviewable call. And it's the exact reason why you have to limit the range of calls that are subject to replay. If you open up all plays to replay, as Bill Belichick has suggested, but then you limit the number of... There's something to the idea of limiting the number of reviews that you can have, but it's plays like this that make it so much more complicated, because then the reviewers have to go in and say, oh, yeah, we look at that, and now having slowed it down, we see that there was enough there to call pass interference. Well, then if the Seahawks still have a challenge, do they throw out their challenge flag and go, oh, we'll review earlier in the play and see the hands to the face, and now we have to do over fourth down, or look to see if there was a holding penalty on one of the offensive linemen. Like you mentioned, Adam, watching that Monday night game and hearing from Coach Gruden talk about how unwatchable it was just to watch play after play, flag after flag come in. Imagine how much time the referees are spending under the hood deciding if, in fact, it was a pass interference call. And then at the same time they're looking under the hood, the other team is up in their booth looking at a replay of the play, finding out where they can challenge a play to have an offsetting penalty to try and contradict whether or not if the officials come out in favor of the other team. It makes for such a mess. We already have a mess with a catch rule. Let's not throw in pass interference plays as well. And if they go there, just the fact that they're using this as a way to further along that conversation, man, do better.
Definitely do better. Look, the people that argue that, because it is a slippery slope, just like you said, you start out with the idea, oh, this is now reviewable or that's not reviewable. And then boom, 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 you're reviewing everything, and the game is baseball now.
Yeah.
And it's slowed down to a snail's pace. And it's already slow enough. It needs to be sped up, if anything. Like, the review process is ridiculous.
That third quarter of the Monday night game, that was so slow.
Oh, my gosh, it's brutal. So my problem is let me ask a simple question, Brandon. Are the people that play this game human beings?
Of course.
Are the people that coach the game human beings?
Yeah.
The people that run the league human beings?
Yes.
Okay.
And they make mistakes.
Referees are human beings. And it's a part of the game. It's a human being game with human beings running around at one another. You're never going to get all the calls exactly, perfectly correct. It is a part of the game. And I enjoy the idea of having the referees being a part of the game.
Except in Super Bowl 40.
I'll catfish about it forever that we got screwed.
But that's part of the game.
But that's part of the game. So here's my thing. If you really want everything reviewed, I think that, again, is not workable. If you really are bothered by the officiating like this, then what you need to do is lobby the NFL to hire full-time referees, where this is what they do, or they're living. Like, all they do is study the rule book and know everything inside and out and work on being a better official and blah, blah, blah. But no, the NFL's too damn cheap to do that, because heaven forbid the multi-billion-dollar industry caves into the refs. And we saw them crush the refs through the replacement referee situation. Yeah. We all recall that. So look, let's just make the referees paid full-time professionals like a lot of the other leagues. This isn't crazy town. I mean, I don't need a hardware store worker also being an NFL game official. Like, let's just make him an NFL official.
Yeah.
Like, it's very simple. The other thing about pass interference to me, instead of making it reviewable, this is what I would say. Instead of having it be a spot foul, make it 15 yards like college.
And, well, that's how it used to be. You'll remember that was the reason why that you had wide receivers just running wide open down the field. And you could just have a corner just dive at his legs when he realized he wasn't going to get there, and then just break it up for a 15-yard penalty. So I think it is a little bit more difficult, because then if you say, well, that could be a spot penalty, but something like what happened with Sherman and Julio Jones has to be a 15-yarder, then you're adding another level of judgment. So I don't know what the right situation is. I do like the idea of making them full-time.
PI 15 yards. Like, I know you said, well, DBs would just do what you described, right?
Yeah.
Well, right now, what offenses do to get a cheap play, they just run the receiver down there and they chuck it up. Either the receiver catches it, or he knocks the ball away, or he gets interfered with.
Yeah.
2 out of those 3 things are good for you. Like, offenses are taking advantage of the rule of it being a spot foul.
Sure.
And it makes the officials be the ones that are determining the game, right? Like, as far as big pass interference calls.
Yeah. Well, that's why you don't see it a lot on the desperation plays, right?
Right. Yeah. Especially, yeah, exactly. On Hail Marys. There's a lot of chucking and jiving that goes on.
Oh, Golden Tate, everybody complained it. Even though he came down with the ball, they complained about the little push off that he did before jumping up to get it.
Right. Which, being a fair fan, when people come at me with that, I'll be like, yeah, he pushed off.
He did push off.
Yeah. Like, you bet. So any Falcon fan that says, oh, you never admit to anything. Well, yeah, Julio Jones slapped Richard Sherman upside the head before.
They should have replayed the down. I'll give them that.
Yes, absolutely yes.
And the Seahawks still would have broken it up on the next 4th and 10, and we would have won.
That's right, because they broke up the first 3.
Well, speaking of humans making mistakes, I don't know if you saw that when they were doing how the little pictures come up and for the player introductions. On the bottom half of the screen. Jermaine Ifedi, they had a picture of DJ Fluker.
No way.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's hilarious, man.
And it looked like the Madden version of DJ Fluker. It didn't even look like his actual picture. It was like they took a profile pic from Madden, and the wrong one and plugged it in. It looked off.
That's really funny.
Let's get into Better at Life. My Better at Life this week. Adam, on last week's bonus show, we talked about the NFL's new social media policy, right? That forbids NFL teams from showing game day highlights in their social media channels. So if you were following the Seahawks on Twitter and you were wondering why you didn't see a video highlight of the Earl Thomas interception or Alex Collins getting his first touchdown on his one carry, that's why. Because the individual teams, the Seahawks can't show highlights now in their social media. Right. So the NFL is actually fining teams who show these clips for each offense, and it's not a small amount. It's $25,000 for the first offense, $50,000 for the second offense, and $100,000 after that. It's the cost of the salary of the person running the social media for the season, right? So you're probably asking, how is this better at life and not do better? Well,
Right.
This is where the Philadelphia Eagles and the Cleveland Browns come in. If you haven't seen these videos, you got to check the show notes or track down these videos. If the NFL hasn't already forced the teams to take them down off Twitter. But both teams, both the Eagles and Browns, had very similar ideas for how to take a board game, like those magnetic football games, Adam.
Yes.
And they have the little football on the stick. And they used the magnetic football game with the football on the stick to reenact what actually happened. and the Browns video is by far superior in terms of production value. Both equally hilarious. Both and both teams happen to lose their respective games. But for showing how I'm sure all teams are feeling about this silly rule and having a little fun at the NFL's expense, the Browns and Eagles social media teams are better at life than Skip Bayless.
They're fantastic, man. That is hilarious to me. Yeah, way to stick it to the league. Because, again, they're just being money mongers. I don't understand this rule at all. It's crazy.
Nobody understands it. And I did like, though, how when the Browns video, the Browns score a touchdown. And so it shows, the little magnetic football player crossing the goal line. And then they have a screen of black and it flashes the word touchdown.
Yeah.
That's what we're resorting to. Those are our highlights now.
Yeah, right. Thanks a lot, NFL. All right, my Better at Life this week is for the New Orleans Saints, and they did something pretty cool this week. They have a young fan who's 14, and he has some sort of liver condition that's made it so he doesn't grow like as quickly as ever. So he looks small. He looks like he's like 7 or so, right? But he apparently has been around the organization a fair amount the last few weeks, and this kid is hilarious, man. Like, there's one video clip of him down in the end zone pregame, and Joe Webb is dancing down by the end zone. He's like, hey, you get over here. It's like, don't you be dancing in my end zone. Don't you be dancing in my end zone. And like, it gets after Joe Webb. Joe Webb's like, dude, sorry. All right, man. All right. I'm not gonna do it. So he's on they invite him to the Today Show, it looked like, and it was Sean Payton, Drew Brees, and one other guy. And anyhow, this kid's been around the team, and I guess he gives everybody kind of the what for. He's a character, man. Like, he's on everybody, needs to do better. He's like, look, you guys can't make these games these tight. You got to do better. Like, he's on it, and he's hilarious. So the New Orleans Saints decided that they were going to sign him to a contract for him to be the social media handler for the New Orleans Saints. He's going to be their official hype man because he's hilarious. And so they show it, and basically you just got to sign the contract. Hey, you don't have to tell me twice. He writes his name on there as fast as possible. And just a feel-good story, really, to reach out to a really cool kid, and just a classy move. New Orleans Saints, better at life than Skip Bayless.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Another good way to end the show. Good uplifting story.
Exactly. See, we're not always a-holes. Well, Brandan never is, but I'm not always an a-hole. Like, sometimes I can be nice.
Yeah, and it's another NFC South team that maybe we can actually get behind.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially after they beat the Panthers.
Yeah. You think they're beating the Panthers this weekend?
No, I'm just saying that the Saints ended the Panthers season effectively last week.
That's true. I almost jinxed that by texting you in the second quarter when they were up 21-0. R.I.P. 2016 Panthers.
You did almost jinx them.
But not quite.
Not quite. It wasn't strong enough of a jinx. It wasn't like my thought of Nolan Freese being good for the first 4 games.
Right, exactly. Well, cool, man. Good episode. And I think with that,
there's only one thing left to say.
Go Hawks.
Go Hawks. Thanks for tuning in to this week's show. If you enjoy the Seahawkers podcast, be sure to check out all 32 picks and IPAs. You can get it at picksandipas.com, and find us in iTunes and Stitcher and wherever else you get your podcasts.